This episode is brought to you by Tibor, Raffle, and Robert, this week's newest patrons. Since the beginning of these price point episodes, we've been looking at some pretty cool boats. But there's one kind of sailboat that we haven't really touched on. So much so that I've been called a hater of these kind of boats, which I'm not, but I've been called it more than once. And it's not that I'm really a hater, it's that they haven't really come up yet. We've been doing price point episodes sort of in order, starting at $20,000, moving on up. And honestly, these boats are just too darn expensive, so we haven't had one show up until today. Today's video has some really cool stuff in it, like this Saga, which we haven't really seen a Saga yet, but that's not what I'm talking about. We're also going to look at this Sabre, another brand that sort of eluded us, but the one that seems to be the one you're all waiting for, the one I'm getting comments about, we're going to see our first Catamaran. This week on Everything You Need to Know, the $225,000 sailboat. It's been a minute since I've made an episode. Actually, I think it's been 13 days. But after the holidays, I just got swarmed with work, my day job. And now I'm just like way behind on videos and consults. And if you've been waiting for me, I'm really sorry, but I'm back and I'm playing catch up now. So I'll talk to you soon. $225,000 is kind of a lot of money to spend on a sailboat. So for that price point, which is like, one bedroom bungalow money, we better get something that's sort of special. And for our first boat today, it definitely looks like it delivers. This is a 2006 Sabre 386, and it's sitting on the west coast right now. Now, Sabre yachts is not something that we see all that often, but they have been around since 1970, when their founder, Roger Hewson, set out basically with the goal of building the best 28-footer that he could possibly build. And he was going to use newfangled technology for 1970, like fiberglass construction and production lines. In a tiny 4,000 square foot building, Roger built the first Sabre 28, and it was actually a huge hit. They brought it to the Newport Boat Show, and boom, they started selling them. They actually went on to make 588 of these things. So you've probably seen one of them, even if you didn't know that it was a Sabre 28. And then they went on to make some bigger boats, as you do after your first successful 28. They made a 34, and then a 38, and then a 42. But after that, Sabre did something interesting. They didn't disappear into the history books like a lot of 70s and 80s brands actually did. They managed to weather the storm of the 1990s, which was hard for boat makers, and they adapted with newer models of boats like the 362 and the 402 and then the 452. And they did such a good job with these newer generation, more production boat style, sure. They did such a good job with these models that they won the coveted Cruising Magazine Boat of the Year for most of them when they came out with them. It's amazing. Now, to say that Sabre as a brand is known to be a fairly high performance sort of boat would probably be an understatement. The 386 that we're going to look at today was made from 2002 to 2012, so a 10-year run, and it has a PHRF rating of 81 for a 38-footer, which is awesome. For those of you who know what PHRF is, you know that's awesome. For those who don't, this cruising boat is hella fast. And although she is actually fairly good looking, she comes in at 17,000 pounds, so she's no slouch in the comfort department either. Remember, this is just a 38-footer, so you'll be able to single-hand it. You'll be able to dock it. You might even be able to afford to take care of it. On deck, you get all the high-end gear like Harken self-tailing winches everywhere a winch is needed, and a high-end carbon boom vang, and Harken blocks and tackle in every picture. You get a tall double spreader rig with an adjustable backstay, so you can bend the mast when you want to scare the crap out of your crew knife edging up into the wind, which this boat will do. You also get, to help with that, inboard jib tracks, and then the chain plates are inboard as well. The coach top main traveler looks high-end Harken too, and it looks like you even get a laminate jib on this boat, though that may be a downfall if you're not into racing. Now, we've never really talked about sail materials on this channel very much, but Cruisers tend to prefer Dacron, which is that typical white material that almost all sails are made out of. And we prefer it because it lasts for so long, many years. Lightly, gently used, well cared for Dacron can still be used when it's 20 something years old. Laminates, however, don't last that long. And you can tell a laminate because it looks like it's covered in some kind of a plastic. And they're usually yellow if they're Kevlar or black if they're carbon fiber, things like that. That material hates UV and it tends to get brittle after only a couple of years. Many racers actually swap these sails out every 3 to 4 years, which is expensive. You can tell a real racing boat because it's going to have laminate sails. On the plus side to laminate, though, it holds an amazing shape, and they're extremely slippery as they travel through the air. So all this go fast on this boat doesn't mean she isn't a cruiser, however. You get an electric windlass, which is kind of sacrilege in the racing world because of the weight it adds. You get door aids, and you get lots of nice tan sunbrella to keep you out of the weather. And inside, you get a very tasteful modern 38-footer. Not that IKEA stuff either. This is all nice woodwork, and I suspect no laminates, pun intended. This boat is very classy and it's functional inside. You even get a head with a separate shower stall on a 38-footer, which is crazy. This boat looks extremely well cared for too, and it's well kept. I suspect you won't find anything out of place on a survey when you go to look at it. I love the space inside too, and I know I mentioned that it has 2 staterooms, but look at the 2 staterooms. I honestly can't decide which one I would sleep in as the owner. They're both beautiful and they're both big. They would both work, though I suspect I'd choose the aft stateroom because it'd be more comfortable at anchor. Honestly, if you added dinghy davits and a couple of solar panels and a little bit bigger anchor, this boat would be an amazing cruiser to get you just about anywhere in the islands, and you could race it when you get there. Now I know some of you just can't turn your heads away from a more classic design with more woodwork and more weight, and at the $225,000 price point, it just wouldn't be the same without a Shannon. And Shannon is the brand that is famous for the owner, Walter Schulz, always saying he wants every boat he ever makes to outlast him. And it shows. Shannon is always known for the quality of its construction and its offshore integrity. That's a quote from, I think, Cruising Magazine. And those are nice words to hear when you're about to drop this kind of money on a sailboat. This is a 1999, though it doesn't look it, Shannon 43. And it's sitting in Maine right now, and it is just beautiful. This is, of course, a cutter and a ketch, so you won't be lacking for sail plan when you go get her out in the trade winds in the ocean and you get all that canvas up. She's going to be even more beautiful, and she's going to freight train her way to the next destination. And these Shannon boats are set up to be lived in. They aren't, massive 15-foot beams with all this space. They're set up to be sailed around the world as full-time cruisers, and they can be found everywhere in the world because of it. And while this may be a 1999 build, it doesn't scream modern plastic. Outside on this boat, you do get more modern electronics and an electric windlass, but everything is time-honored and proven from hundreds of thousands of ocean miles. Where the winches are, everything's led aft, where they put the clutches. It's designed to be short-handed sailed. You won't be entertaining 12 guests in the cockpit when you get to the anchorage, but that's not what this boat's for. Inside you get classic woodwork in a 2-stateroom layout designed to be completely functional, even at sea. You can cook in it on a 30-degree heel. And for a couple plus 1 or 2 guests, this is it. This is why they made this boat. Everything is meant to be accessible as well and serviceable, and it's easy to live with as you cross the ocean. You also get tons of storage and tons of tankage, and everything is extremely well made and meant to last for as long as possible. And of course, being an ocean boat, she's well equipped with offshore electronics and radios. The old salts among us absolutely adore these boats for a lot of good reasons. But if it's not for you and you need something a bit more modern, wait till you see this next boat. Lady K Sailing is brought to you by patrons, people who give a couple of bucks an episode to make this channel possible. I honestly couldn't do it without you guys. I'd like to give a big shout out to the existing patrons who have gotten us this far. If you'd like to help out, please consider becoming a patron. This next beauty is going to be a Saga 409. And Saga is actually a relatively new boat maker. It was founded by Alan Poole around 1995. And you may not have heard of them, but they've been making a pretty big name for themselves in the more sort of luxury sailboat market for quite a while. Now, Saga never really messed about with smaller boats like 25s and 28s and 22s and where most manufacturers start. They started with 35 and 40 and 43 and 48, but they aren't messing about because they have actually gotten some pretty good designers to help them pen some of those boats. People like Robert Perry, who is one of our favorites around here. Today's boat, the 409, was actually designed by Tony Castro, and she comes in a very comfortable 20,000 pounds. But unlike modern boats, they didn't go crazy with the beam. Most modern 40-footers are a Goliath, like 14 or 15 foot wide, but this is only 12 and a half. So it'll still fit in your slip. Designed as a coastal cruiser, she sports 75 gallons of diesel and 100 gallons of water, but this boat's party piece is just being a modern and very elegant rendition of a coastal sailor. Elegant is the word that keeps coming to mind for me as I look her over. She's a 2006, but she could easily be a 2026 with her very appealing design, ignoring the fact that her large side port lights might be lifted from a Jeannot Sun Odyssey, and her coach top horizontal port lights could potentially get them into some trouble with Hunter. But we like those port lights, and they make for an extremely airy and light interior. You also get this roll bar sort of thing over the companionway, which is a great way to get the main traveler out of the way, and it gives you a solid Dodger frame that doesn't get broken every time your friend's obnoxious brother comes onto the boat and manhandles everything as if it can't be broken. You know who I'm talking about. You also get this weird stainless steel arch over the walk-through on the transom out back, and it's very interesting. Not only does it make boarding the boat from the dinghy easy and extremely safe, because you have somewhere to grab and pull yourself into the boat, but it gives you a place to mount the radar and all the antenna, and it removes the backstay from that area entirely, because the backstay's up on top of that arch. I've never seen this done before. This is also a twin helm, which is, at this level of luxury, you kind of expect that. The cockpit is roomy, and again, more solid stainless steel everywhere. It all screams very well built and safe at sea, and I like that, having somewhere to hold on that's absolutely rock solid. I'm starting to see why Saga boats cost so much money. They seem to spare no expense. Heading inside, the word elegant comes to the forefront again. Although some of these pictures aren't very good, the boat just looks like a nice place to be, especially after a long day at sea and you retire inside to cook a meal. It looks happy. Up front, you get the guest cabin, of course, but the head is adorned with glass shower walls, and everywhere you look, it's just very, very nice. I like the cabinetry. I like the off-white upholstery that looks very taut and well kept. I like the fit and finish and the little details, like how all the electronics are evenly spaced out perfectly and all in line with each other. It makes my OCD happy. It makes my heart happy. I like the little glass backsplash in between the sink and the settee. I like how they lined up the wood grain vertically on the cupboard doors. Who does that? It's beautiful. I love the big windows everywhere too. It almost feels like a deck saloon without being ugly on the outside. And I like how bright everything is. And even though these pictures were taken at night, the LED lighting really, really lights this boat up. I do not, however, like the aft cabin. It gives you an insane amount of outdoor storage in the Port Lazarette, but the aft cabin shrinks because of it, and I like somewhere nice to store my body too when I'm not using it. And this aft cabin leaves me wanting for a little bit more luxury back there, I think. All in all, I love this boat though for its elegance, and I think Saga is a brand we're definitely going to see more of on this channel. Before we get to the last boat we're going to talk about today, the one you've probably been waiting for, I get a lot of requests from people for help in their boat shopping journey. So I dedicated a page over at ladyksailingcom where you can go and ask for help. To book an hour of my time for a chat, head over to ladyksailingcom/consults, and I'd be happy to help. This is the boat some of you guys have been waiting for and very mad at me about. Genuinely mad because I don't talk about catamarans enough. And honestly, it's not because I don't like them. I actually really do like them. The problem is that we've only just gotten to $225,000 in these price point episodes, and I haven't yet seen a cat worth talking about. As the price point grows, though, in future episodes, I'm sure there'll be tons of cats, and probably the episode you're expecting with that age old argument of cat versus mono. But we just aren't there yet financially in the price point journey. But one cat did show up in today's search, and at $225,000, you won't be getting a big fancy cat. You'll be looking at this. This is a Prout 38. And if you think all cats are like Lagoon 440s and leopards, then this you might consider to be a baby cat, a more affordable cat, and more manageable with a beam of just 17 feet, which is actually pretty small by cat standards. But don't let that fool you. You do get a lot of boat in this footprint. And this particular 38 has already been outfitted with tons of solar panels and a wind generator, dinghy davits to haul the dinghy around. It's even got a custom-made hard bimini with massive stainless steel support system, and it's got a pretty big rockna up on the roller, and it's cutter rigged, so I suspect they intend to use this boat. She comes with twin Yanmars too, which is a very big perk, and an onboard generator to sort of keep the juices flowing. Inside, you get that staple of catamaran life. You get that main floor, big living area where you're very high up and you can enjoy all the port lights and feel like more of a part of the anchorage because you can see everything outside as opposed to living in a cave like you do on most mono hulls. This is the 3-cabin layout in the hulls, but because of its size, the galley is located in the starboard hull, which I'm not big on. And while this does give you private spaces for more than one set of couples to live in peace, it is kind of a tight boat for the size of it. Of course, being a cat, however, you do get the added speed and, of course, the redundancy of those 2 Yanmars, and you get a nice captain's chair at the helm, so you won't be exhausted after a long passage. And these boats are touted as passage makers, and then they have a shallow draft to get you into some of those tighter spots when you get to the anchorage that the monohulls just can't go. You can actually beach this boat at low tide so that you can work on stuff underneath, and that's pretty handy. Now this boat does make me really look forward to some of the big fancy cats that I'm sure we're going to start seeing as our wallet grows in these price point episodes, but this one for me, it just isn't my fancy. For $225,000, which they're asking, I could have just about any very capable monohull that I like in fairly good shape. So I'm not in cat territory yet at $225, but maybe that's just me. That's it for this week, guys. If you want to chat in between episodes, we have a great Lady K Sailing Discord community that's really starting to grow, where we talk about everything from buying boats to modifying boats to different places to sail, everything under the sun. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to come and say hi. Until next week, keep the heavy side down, but not too far down.